Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the board. Kevin Page, Chair of the Nevada System Higher Education Board of Regents. With me today is Vice Chair Jason Geddes and Chancellor Tom Riley. Thanks for having us. Enrollment and the needs for student services continue to increase at both our universities as well as our colleges. Nevada State College, our newest institution in Henderson, is seeing enrollment increases close to 25% year over year. And we need to ensure we are planning for infrastructure support to be able to continue to grow. The governor has set very ambitious goals that are set forth in the 5-year strategic plan for Nevada. Included in those goals are plans to lead the nation in high-quality job growth, which emphasis on high quality, to attract companies and investment that will drive growth, to require additional investments in higher education. A related goal is that by 2025, 60% of all Nevada residents aged 25 to 34 will have some type of post-secondary degree or certificate. Again, this goal will be accomplished through our NSHE institutions, and we need the infrastructure to be able to attain these and other goals that the governor has set forth for our state. This year, the board changed the process for considering and ranking our capital projects. The process allowed for significant campus input. All of our institutional presidents presented their top projects to the board in an open meeting, and the board of directors, the Board of Regents did a ranking recommendation by region. Those rankings were then compiled, and the result is the final rankings of the projects that you are considering today.
Thank you. Good afternoon. While the need for the capital investment and...
Sir, will you speak?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Jason Geddes, Vice Chair of the Board of Regents, GEDDES. While the need for capital investment and maintaining our current infrastructure is great, as a system, we have not been sitting back. All the projects that you're considering today have some degree of money raised at the campus level, ranging up to 50% for the UNLV engineering building. This is a continuation of the ongoing trend that has been a significant amount of our capital construction funded through a combination of fundraising and students stepping up by paying additional fees and tuition to fund special projects such as the Wiegand Fitness Center at UNR and the new student unions being developed at the College of Southern Nevada campuses. The Board of Regents has recognized that our deferred maintenance needs will not be addressed through the current mixture of some state funding through our HEC check, as well as the CIP and GIF generated on the campuses. In the past year, the board has approved 2 special distributions from our investment reserves, totaling $50 million to address deferred maintenance issues and energy efficiency issues on our campuses. The board directed that money for the most pressing of those maintenance needs, and as a board, we feel strongly that the state needs to look at new options for addressing the significant backlog of statewide deferred maintenance. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the board. For the record, my name is Tom Riley, Chancellor of the Nevada System of Higher Education. It's an honor to be here, appearing before you as a Chancellor, and I welcome the opportunity to be able to present to you a number of very worthy projects that will advance the educational and economic well-being of our citizens by investing in higher education and workforce development. Today, we'll present 3 capital projects in priority order and 7 proposed planning projects that if funded, would be the basis for future capital requests. All 3 of the capital projects were awarded planning dollars in the 2017 legislative session, and if funded, would be ready to go ASAP. The capital projects are a new teaching college at Nevada State College, a health sciences facility to be jointly used by the College of Southern Nevada and Nevada State College, and a new engineering building for UNLV. Earlier this year, the Board of Regents prioritized the projects in the order of Nevada State College, the second one being the Health Sciences Building, and the third being the UNLV Engineering Building. The Board of Regents then requested each institution to submit a planning project that would have the greatest impact on meeting the strategic goals in the coming year. And the 7 planning projects you'll hear today are a result of that ranking. The 7 planning projects are in priority order as follows. First, planning for a welding lab expansion at Great Basin College in Elko. Advanced planning for a new science and academic building at UNLV in Las Vegas. Renovations of the Marlette Hall at Western Nevada College in Carson City. Fourth, advanced planning for a joint use science solutions center between Desert Research Institute and Truckee Meadows Community College in Reno. Fifth, advanced planning for new Northwest Las Vegas campus for CSN in Las Vegas. Sixth, planning for a new life sciences building at UNR in Reno. And to round that off, our seventh project is planning and design for a new water storage facility at Nevada State College in Henderson. Later in our presentation, our Chief Financial Officer, Chet Burton, will discuss the deferred maintenance request requirements for the system. The Board of Regents did not rank the deferred maintenance projects due to the sheer number of them and the fact that beyond the higher education construction, capital construction, and the special higher education capital construction appropriations of $15 million per biennium that has been funded over the last several sessions, there has been no other funding identified for deferred maintenance. With an aging infrastructure at the number of our institutions, the NCHE deferred maintenance needs are quickly reaching critical levels. In recognition of our current nature of our deferred maintenance requirements, early this year, as noted, the Board of Regents voted to allocate $25 million spread across all our institutions out of a pooled investment funds to address the most pressing deferred maintenance issues. This is an example of the priority the board has placed on the issue and stepping forward with making a substantial investment towards addressing some of the most pressing issues. In closing, I'd like to commend the staff of the State Public Works Division who have worked closely with our institutions and NCHE staff to develop and validate the cost estimates for the projects proposed for the 2019 legislative session. With the degree of construction inflation we are facing as a state, we're well aware of the difficulties of doing accurate estimates in this environment. Additionally, I'd like to thank the members of the State Public Works Board for their continuing effort to meet all the needs of a rapidly growing state and limited resources. I know we have an ambitious request, but we are going to keep the economic momentum going as a state that we are experienced in the last 5 years or so. Higher education is going to continue to be a cornerstone of our growth. And thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Chair. Bart Patterson, President of Nevada State College. It's our pleasure to introduce you to the capital project, which is an education building at Nevada State College. Just to give you a little bit of history, this project was the second-ranked project in the system 2 years ago, and was not able to be funded in full. But we did receive the planning dollars from the legislature, which we were very grateful to receive those planning dollars. A little bit about Nevada State College. We are the second fastest growing college in the country for a 4-year baccalaureate institution. And in that 2-year period, as an example, we had a 72% increase in freshman enrollment last year. And we have another large class coming in this year. So the students have found out about Nevada State and the educational experience that they can have there. And we, in the 2015 time period, finished construction of 2 buildings. And we did that through essentially utilizing our own resources. Those 2 buildings were built with a combination of a new student fee, allocation of formula dollars that would go to institutions through that formula funding that they could spend on typically instructional purposes and other purposes of the college. We knew we had to build those buildings because of that rapid rise in student enrollment to meet the state need. So our students stepped up and we stepped up, and so we pay about $3.4 million out of our budget every year to cover the cost of the existing buildings that are built on that campus. And that's over approximately 20 years left in that term. So we're kind of tapped out in terms of borrowing ourselves in order to build buildings. And so this will be the first time that we're able to ask the state since 2008. So we tried to design this building with a number of efficiencies in mind. So it will be located next to where our central plant is, so that saves some money. We've also set it up at split level elevations so that we don't have to do as much grading, and we're utilizing an existing parking lot site, so that also helps with the efficiencies in the building. The total cost of the project, I think the numbers have changed a little bit, even since this slide was created, but $61.6 million for 65,000 square feet. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the project as we go along, but we've agreed to provide a $6 million match, and we're well on the way toward that. If I go to the next slide, thanks, Chet. So we are really focused on building the teacher pipeline. We know there's a consistent teacher shortage. We know that's only going to grow because it's a national issue. It's not just a state of Nevada issue, and that is also a statewide issue. There's a teacher shortage in rural Nevada as much as there is in Las Vegas, but certainly Las Vegas has a very critical problem, and you hear the numbers of teachers from year to year for positions that go unfilled. I think the current estimate this year is approximately 500. But there's been years where it's been about 1,000. And so the district struggles in finding substitutes to cover classrooms, and we know we need to greatly expand the teacher education program at Nevada State College, and that is a core mission of a state college. So we're very focused on that mission. We have been for 2 years, and we're doing different things to try to help build that teacher pipeline. We currently graduate about 80 to 100 teachers through the different programs we have. We know we need to triple the size of that program. And this building will permit us to have the offices and the classroom space and really the lab space that's critical to have an excellent teacher education program. And this building will allow us to do that. And we are very focused on that. Next slide, please. So I've talked a little bit about the growth in the program, but let me talk about how really our teacher education is a little unique. We have very much a STEM focus in our teacher education programs. We have endorsements in technology. We have endorsements in special education. We have endorsements in English language acquisition, working with those kinds of students that come to the districts challenged with their English skills. And so we require that as part of our degree to have those skills to work with that population. So that's part of our core program, which we need to build, those two programs, elementary and secondary ed. But we also need to build new programs. We received some money from the legislature in the last session to start a speech pathology program, a master's in speech pathology. And we are going to continue to grow that program. This building will house a speech pathology lab so we can bring in community and have that be a teaching facility where community members can bring in their children to be able to participate in that clinical environment. So it's very important for the services. We also are starting a bachelor's in early childhood education, another critical state need. This building will have a child lab, so again, an opportunity for the community to have their children at the lab and us be able to use that as a teaching, training kind of facility. So that will help us grow in that way as well. And as I mentioned before, one of the other ways we're doing is building our own pipeline. So we are reaching out to the high schools, and we've developed this concept called Teachers Academies. And so students are getting early credits in teacher education as well as general education so that we can pipeline more students to go into education at accelerated rate and stay in the school districts and help really build the school districts to be excellent as all the school districts intend to do. Thank you. And so I talked about that unbelievable really increase in enrollment. You can imagine the challenges we have of addressing that. The last building we had funded by the state was in 2008. That was the Liberal Arts and Sciences building. That was a 42,000 square foot building. In the time since that building was funded, we have more than doubled our student population since 2008. We used to have lease facilities down on Water Street. When we built the two buildings with the funding that I mentioned, self-funding, we were able to move all of our operations up to the Nevada State College site. That site was about 5 miles away. And so that's one of the real challenges of this location. It's an absolutely beautiful location, but one of the challenges of that location is there's really no lease space around that we can easily expand operations. Another reason why the building is critical for us. So I think I've covered all the major points on the building and its need, and be happy to respond to any questions about the project.
Thank you, gentlemen. I have a quick question for you, Mr. Patrick. What was the amount of the planning in the 17P08? Do you happen to know that, or is anybody?
Yeah, I don't have that at my fingertips here, but it was a couple $1 million in that range. Oh, yeah. Maybe Kevin has that. Thank you.
Kevin Butler, Nevada State College. It was $3.5 million, but I also want to remind everybody that there was $1 million in there that helped us to acquire the only other building that was out in the neighborhood, and we're already stuffing that building full right now. So the planning amount was just north of $2.5 million plus the $1 million that we used to acquire the other building.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add further, so the projects you're going to hear today from the Nevada System of Higher Education, there's 3 projects that are up here for construction, and so all those we're entering into the planning phase, and so we've recently received schematic design documents and cost estimates, and so within the last month or so, a couple months, we've received these documents, and so these cost estimates are updated. And so for perspective, the planning phase is, we'll say, 25% done on the 3 projects that the board's about to hear. And so then all 3 of them are a little bit on the same track regarding a schedule. And so we'll be receiving design development documents, which will also provide an estimate. So some of these new estimates from our team with our construction manager at risk, cost estimating firms, and the architectural team doing estimates. You know, those estimates are being developed by this team with oversight from the colleges, universities, and Public Works. We'll be receiving updated estimates, some in later September, 1st of October. These 3 are kind of bridging right over the gap where this information will be going to the governor's office from the board. Just a little update on the status of the design. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Can you tell us a little bit about the $6 million in funding that Nevada State College is bringing forward? Where does that come from, and how was it raised?
Yes, so we're well on the way to raising the funds. We have about $1 million cash in hand. We have 2 agreements that are out for signature. That would be another approximately $3.5 million. So we're hoping those agreements get signed soon, and we'll have that money in the door. And then we have another approximately $2.5 million that are in the ask stage, and another $3 million that will be shortly in the ask phase. So we're very confident that we'll raise the $6 million within approximately the next 60 days.
And just a follow-up question, but at this time it's still in you're still putting the money together, it's not secured.
Yeah, we're still putting the money together. It's not secured. And there are some college funds that we could apply toward the project as bridge funding if needed, but not at that level yet.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, committee members. Mr. Chairman, committee members, my name is Federico Zaragoza, and I'm the new president of the College of Southern Nevada, also known as CSN. First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to present our request for funds to construct a 73,000 square foot health and science building at our new Henderson campus. As the Chancellor has already stated, Henderson is an area of the region that is growing in leaps and bounds. But more importantly, we want to talk about not the brick and mortars, but also the context for the effort at our Henderson campus and at CESN. First and foremost, this building is going to address some of the workforce and economic development considerations that are so important for our community to continue to grow and prosper. Healthcare, as you know, is not only an issue that is dealing with the quality of life component, but also nationally and locally and regionally, it's one of the fastest growing areas in terms of occupational demand. And this is a sector of the workforce that requires specialized training. And if you talk to the healthcare industry, they're going to tell you that it's an area where they have serious skill gaps. They simply do not have enough of the professionals that are needed to address current need. So the proposal here is twofold. One, the region, in Henderson specifically, is developing an aggressive effort to expand its medical complex, and there is a Union Village Complex initiative that is going to be supported by this request. Again, Henderson has a comprehensive plan to continue to expand services in the area and to continue to build an infrastructure to support Southern Nevada. Their investments are significant, and they currently have an initial projection of needing 700 new healthcare workers. So again, this proposal positions us to work hand in hand with the local community and also with the health sector to address the workforce needs, but also to improve the quality of life for all of Nevada. And quality of life is one of those important considerations when we're talking about business expansion and business development. I also want to indicate, as I mentioned earlier, that the vast majority of the occupations in the health sector are considered high demand, but they're also primary labor market occupations, meaning they pay good wages. They have a tremendous benefit to not only the community, but to the recipients. And as communities continue to grow and some of us grow older, the need for the healthcare worker is going to continue to grow. So this positions, obviously, the higher education system to be responsive to that sector. I also want to kind of emphasize that when I said the Higher Education Center, that we're very excited that this is a partnership. This is both the community college and the higher education system or the university system working together to address the whole alignment. Typically, you see proposals that are looking at just nursing or they're looking at the higher end of the occupational spectrum. Our proposal is to address vertically all of the sector, and that includes the LVN component, nursing, but in addition to that, we're looking at the CNA component, we're looking at phlebotomy, medical office, aligning our programs to the growth in the health sector and in the health cluster. So very important to understand we're positioning the higher education system to be responsive basically to the dynamics and the comprehensive nature of needs that are being emerging as the efforts within the region continue to evolve. More specifically, as we move through the partnership, we're also very cognizant of the fact that not only do we need to align to our university system for university level skills, but we're also committed to working with our pipeline. And the pipeline is very important because some of these jobs provide opportunities for our non-traditional students to get into the health professions. And we have a significant effort with 8 high schools to be able to create those pathways from high school to the community college to the university, and right alongside with the industries that are going to be working with us, not only in terms of driving the curriculum, but also providing clinical opportunities and down the line the jobs. So I hope that I've kind of conveyed to you how excited we are about this opportunity. It's much more than brick and borders for us. It's really an opportunity for the community college and higher education system to bring a necessary element to the economic development and prosperity opportunities for Southern Nevada. I believe at a high level that's the presentation that we have. I'm available to answer questions as appropriate by the committee.
Ann, would you like to say something? Oh, okay. Are there any questions of the board? Thank you, gentlemen and lady. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chairman.
Marta Miana, UNLV President. For the record, good afternoon. Marta Miana. Good afternoon. We are here to talk about an engineering building. Enrollment in the engineering college at UNLV is growing at an unprecedented rate. In the last 10 years, enrollment in undergraduate programs has grown by over 50%, and undergraduate degrees conferred have grown by 40%. Graduate student numbers are up 20% just from last year. So today, we have 2,700 students who are pursuing an undergraduate degree in engineering, 150 pursuing a master's degree, and 120 pursuing PhDs. In the area of computer science alone, we have had an increase of 219% in enrollment. Now, this is a crucial discipline at UNLV Engineering, as it supports many sectors of the Nevada workforce and economy, such as gaming, development and construction, high-tech R&D, manufacturing, and other key industries for such needs as information tech, management information systems, software and application services management, information security, etc. Faculty size has also grown by 50% in the last decade, and we have tripled our research awards and expenditures in 6 years, from $4 million in 2011 to $13 million in 2017. Our programs are ranked by US News and World Report. Civil engineering, for example, is number 87, mechanical engineering 129, and electrical engineering 142. So we're rising in all of these metrics, but we're literally bursting at the seams. In many ways, this is excellent news because it means that we are responding and increasingly poised to respond to a clear workforce demand. 7 of the top areas of Nevada State workforce needs, as identified by the Governor's Office of Economic Development, are in engineering and would be served by our expansion into a new engineering building. These areas are software, civil engineering, electrical, mechanical, network and systems analyst, industrial, and HVAC. The development of these workforce areas that UNLV Engineering directly engages supports many critical Nevada industries. Just to demonstrate, general industry and labor statistics indicate the job growth in these areas will exceed other areas over the next 10 years. I think it's also important to note that over 60% of our graduates work and live in Nevada, so they are actively contributing to the economic development of our state. Now, back to us bursting at the seams. Please consider how much more engineering space our peer and aspirational institutions have than we do. The range is from 17.5% more to 213% more. Those are sizable differences. UNLV clearly needs more space in this area to support the state of Nevada, its citizens, and its key economic sectors. Our focus with this project is to provide the opportunity for UNLV students to be an integral part of tomorrow's workforce and research initiatives, initiatives that support the Nevada economy and its key current and future industries. So really to support the growth and success of our state. Our goal would be to partner with the state of Nevada to increase faculty and student capacity at UNLV Engineering, which directly will support quality workforce development for these key industries that I've already mentioned. If we aren't able to grow into a new facility, it's going to have an impact, obviously, on a number of dimensions. We We'll have to cap the number of students that we admit despite student demand and workforce demand. It's going to obviously limit our ability to meet local workforce needs of a technical variety. It'll also impact our ability to attract research and grant dollars, which facilitates our getting graduate students who, again, move the needle. If we could grow into a new building like this, it would support a 50% growth in enrollment. It would contribute to the economic diversification of Southern Nevada, and I think would be a significant driver of a technology-based workforce. So we believe the need for this building is strong. It is actually one of those perfect situations in which enrollment numbers happen to align with what industry says it needs. And this building would help UNLV bring together these two already aligned forces. Now, UNLV is committed to a 50% match on this approximately $66 million building. And our 50% match would be through a combination of general improvement and capital improvement fees with Regent approval, investment earnings, and donor funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miana. I hope I pronounced that right.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Question for you. Obviously, with limited funds we have, our eyes go to the numbers, and it's good to see you're proposing a 50% match here. That's commendable, and that does get our attention. Tell us about these fees. Are they, or your portion of the match, is it already secured, or what is the time frame for securing these funds, and is there any concern there on your part?
The plan is for our 50%, for us to do a match with donors, a 50-50 within that 50% match with donors. We have the capacity with Regent approval to provide those institutional funds.
And just a follow-up question. So what you're saying is there's the ability to do that. Are they secured at this point, or is it something that if this moved forward, obviously you'd be able to, because you did mention in addition to the fees, there's going to be some fundraising that's taking place. Is that already taken place, or is that something that will be done in the future?
We are actively fundraising for this at the moment, yes.
Are there any other questions? Please, Member Tabert.
Tito Taberti for the record. I see this chart, 219% increase, but like what is the number of the students in the engineering school presently today?
We have
full-time.
2,700 undergraduates.
So you've gone from?
Well, that's all areas in engineering, not just computer science.
Oh, you're, okay, thank you.
Just a follow-up question, Mr. Taberti. So you did mention that's doubled in the last 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how much square footage are you currently operating under within the engineering department?
I think David will answer.
For the record, David Fromer, Executive Director of UNLV Planning Construction. The current square footage available that's focused on engineering on campus is approximately 110,000 square feet. That's largely composed of our Thomas Beam Engineering Building, a high bay lab research building, and a portion of the Science and Engineering Building. That's the portfolio of engineering space on campus, approximately 110,000 more or less.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, for the record, Chet Burton, Chief Financial Officer, we're going to change gears now slightly. As Chancellor Riley indicated, those were our top three projects for construction that received planning money in the 2017 session. Now we're going to talk about 7 planning projects that are the highest priority within our system in priority order.
that if they receive planning money in this session, obviously, then the hope would be down the road to move them up into construction projects in the next session. So we'll start with Great Basin College. Thank you.
For the record, Sonia Seibert, Great Basin College Vice President for Business Affairs. Good afternoon. This project to expand our welding lab has been a priority for Great Basin College since 2009. The current facility was designed and built in the 1980s for about 15 to 18 students. We are now utilizing the current facility from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., Monday through Thursday, and on Fridays and Saturdays for contract training classes. Our demand has outpaced the capacity for a number of years now. In addition, this project would not only double the size of the existing welding lab, it would upgrade to new state-of-the-art equipment in the welding stations and also provide fabrication stations, which we do not have, so we can expand our course offerings. Also to keep in mind, not only do our welding students use this lab extensively, both our diesel technology and our millwright technology programs use these for some of their classes to complete their certificates. Our welding students have a 90% placement, job placement after they graduate, with many of them already having jobs before they graduate through the mining training cooperative scholarships. We have moved forward with some of the rehabilitation of the existing lab, including ventilation and exhaust systems, and we've done that with our own student-generated capital improvement fees and HECSHEC funding. So some of this project will change as we go through the planning project. The demand for the workforce in not only the mining and related industry, but throughout our service area for these skills that these students bring is not going to, we see that increasing over the years, and our workforce partnerships show that they will support this. Our foundation currently has 2 endowed programs, one for emerging opportunities and the other one for new programs, that they will support this through the construction phase with a match. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Marta Miana, for the record. We are requesting the consideration of planning funds for an interdisciplinary academic and research building. From fall 2005 to 2017, the UNLV College of Sciences experienced a 62% increase in enrollment. Other programs in which interdisciplinary sciences education are a foundational component evidenced even greater increases in enrollment, 139% increase in community health sciences, 89% in allied health, and 72% increase in nursing enrollment. This increased student interest in science and health-related programs are matched by a need in our Southern Nevada community for health-related research, services, products, and innovations, including research on neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, needs that, when better supported, increase the quality of life for all Nevadans. And they also help expand our economy and opportunities for economic development. High-quality healthcare service and education are critical components to attracting and retaining industries and workforce. We cannot meet this demand or this need without expanding the space in which to teach and in which to conduct such research. UNLV is currently in a significant space deficit situation for classrooms, labs, and study space. Our space deficit really is substantial. with UNLV having a range of about 59 to 85% of the amount of science research space at peer and aspirational institutions on a headcount basis. We are consequently requesting a $3 million match in planning funds to evaluate our overall facility plan and project phasing options. UNLV could supplement if additional planning funds are needed. We would then consequently be requesting a 50% state funding match in a future CIP cycle for an approximately $70 to $80 million project, with project scope estimated costs being developed and refined in working through the planning, design, and cost estimating process with State Public Works Division staff.
Thank you. Any questions of the board? Thank you very much. Oh, Mr. Fromer.
David Fromer, UNLV for the record. One comment I'll make, and something I need to do a little additional work with Ward Patrick and his team at Public Works. When we went into our Board of Regents for this project, and this may have not translated in our working, communicating this with Public Works, we are proposing a 50-50% planning funds approach, similar to the 50-50 for the engineering, where we had presumed a $6 million plus or minus planning project. 50%, $3 million from the state, 50% from UNLV. So I just wanted to mention that for the record. We'll continue to work with Ward and his team to clarify that, but that is our proposal on this project. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Ward Patrick for the record. We had a little bit of confusion on this project, and so you'll see a little differences in the proposal on the screens and in your handout compared to the book. And what Dave's saying is we're just going to work together to resolve that. And so we recognize that, and we just point it out to you. But thank you for indulging us. We'll get on that and get it back all together by our next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, board members, chair, vice chair. Vince Solis for the record, President WNC. Our request is for project funding related to planning and design of a renovation of one of our largest classrooms on campus. Right now, as you may know, education is in a very dramatic shift as it relates to the types of technologies needed to teach and educate our students in our classroom. The facility that we are requesting the planning monies for is 20 years old. The seating is not adequate. It is too small for students. They do not have the capacity to use their devices that they bring to the classroom. And quite frankly, many of our instructors don't want to use this facility because it is not conducive to learning. What we want to do is capitalize on having this large space, which for the focus at WNC in some of our workforce areas, this is instrumental because having these large classes in this one classroom helps offset the cost for some of our workforce programs that are leading to gainful employment for many of our students. So this project recommendation is critical not just for restructuring how we teach our students, but what it does for us as a campus in relation to teaching large classes that help offset the cost for many other items. The proposed planning, if we were to get it, would be to reduce the overall size of the footprint by adding seating capacity and adding charging stations, adding the technologies that are conducive for teachers to use to teach our students. So it's not a very large project, but it's a very important project to WNC as it relates to how we teach our students moving forward.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, Kristen Averett, President of DRI for the record. So first of all, thank you very much for having us this afternoon. So today, President Hilgerson and I would like to briefly share our vision for the DRI TMCC Science Commons and Research Experience Center. We're requesting $5 million for planning of this unique facility that will address critical needs of both DRI and TMCC and will foster innovative collaborations that are central to the continued growth of Nevada's economic vitality and the success of our students and our research faculty. I'd like to start with a little bit of history and background. This joint use building has been part of the DRI campus vision since the early 2000s, and it's been proposed as a possible capital project request in 4 sessions since 2005. This facility will link DRI's Reno campus and TMCC's Dandini campus. The building will be located on the lower portion of the DRI property, and the planning dollars we are asking for would help us with everything from design and approvals to the site costs and utility fees. We greatly appreciate the time your staff has spent with our facilities leads, and at approximately 65,000 square feet, at a rough estimated cost of $566 per square foot, the building is estimated to cost about $37 million. I'll reiterate that this building has been part of our DRI campus master plan since 2004, and it's something that both institutions have envisioned for a long time. DRI is in need of additional space for our growing Science Alive K-12 outreach program and our new Office of Education. This facility is particularly important as a step for DRI to realize our goal of connecting with the community. The Science Commons will provide a gateway for the community outside of DRI to interact with our scientists and with our science. STEM education maps directly to economic development and our success with workforce development, and it's important that we continue to expose those outside of the research community to the excellence in science and research that we demonstrate at DRI. With that, I'd like to turn it to Dr. Hilgerson.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Is the mic on? Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm Dr. Karen Hilgersum, for the record, president of Truckee Meadows Community College. And much like my colleague, President Averett, I so appreciate the opportunity to share this exciting proposal with you today. Science and technology, as you know, is a rapidly changing field. In fact, the word I would choose would be exponential. That we've gone from a very linear sort of progression in the American economy to an exponential progression in the American economy due to science and technology. We need to be innovative, creative, and strategic in steering our children, but also learners of all ages, the types of learners that we serve at Truckee Meadows Community College, toward science education. Computer science education is included in that, and training. TMCC and DRI are the 2 institutions that are perfectly positioned, both in physical proximity of one another and in terms of the expertise that we offer, to do just that. The proposed DRI TMCC Science Commons and Research Experience Center represents a wise strategic investment into science education that we will be able to offer to the communities we serve. It affords us much needed lab space that is the key to science education. DRI and TMCC collaboration creates functional and cutting-edge spaces for science education, along with support for students, broadening access to science education, which leads to greater prosperity in our region. This unique facility creates a direct connection and shared innovation and space for faculty and students and researchers and the research that they do. Co-locating with DRI not only provides TMCC students with exceptional opportunities to participate in undergraduate research, and by the way, many of our students will transfer to the University of Nevada, Reno and UNLV, very common. But in addition to participating in the research, the DRI faculty will expand to student mentorship in a broad array of topics, such as atmospheric chemistry, hydrology, archaeology, climate modeling, and so much more. So that mentorship is just terrific. Prior experience has shown that these collaborations dramatically increase retention and persistence in STEM career fields, especially for underrepresented populations in the sciences. Additionally, this new facility consolidates the majority of TMCC science labs to a centralized location to meet anticipated student demands. Now, this is the kicker. This is my most important piece. Right now, we're seeing significant increases in underrepresented populations entering in STEM fields at TMCC. We're also seeing a significant increase in general of our students choosing technology. And do you know why? Because they see the new economy that lies in front of them. Enrollment in Biology 190, a prerequisite for allied health programs and other prerequisites, has grown 68% in the last 10 years. Physical sciences have expanded enrollment by 20%. It's hard to believe that students are actually longing for courses in physics, chemistry, and microbiology, but they are. Despite converting available classroom space to labs, the college has a deficit in teaching lab space, and we can't meet existing needs. We turn away an average of 150 students per term in Biology 190 alone. That's pretty unfortunate. The all-new DRI TMCC Science Commons and Research Experience Center will also allow DRI to grow cybersecurity education programs. And now TMCC, we're going to be looking at those very closely as well, because without cybersecurity, our world probably isn't going to be able to operate in the way it does today. Additionally, the classrooms, meeting rooms, and laboratories will be used by both DRI and TMCC, and this is a great NSHE partnership opportunity. These shared areas expand the space available for students, faculty, and support staff to collaborate, teach, host meetings and conferences, bring young children to our campus and get them involved early on, and engage with community partners and our stakeholders. Thank you for your time and consideration of this request.
Thank you, Doctor. Any questions of the board? Thank you very much.
For the record, Federico Zaragoza, CSN President. Mr. Chair, committee members, as part of the CN Master Plan, the federal government passed legislation allowing a transfer of 44 acres of property from the Bureau of Land Management via the city of Las Vegas to the College of Southern Nevada for the express purpose of constructing a fourth college. And it's important to note that we currently have a three-campus college system, and our enrollment right now, as you've heard the themes, is max, and we are in fact bursting at the seams. But more importantly, there is a section, a quadrant of the community that is in dire need of higher education services, and the type of demographics that community colleges are aligned to address. And so we're looking at an underserved and clearly a growing part of the community that needs services. The campus is located in the Las Vegas Valley at the corner of Elkhorn and Durango. The proposed location is critical to the college's effort to make education accessible to residents of the Las Vegas Valley, and it's consistent with our master planning strategy. This location is currently underserved, as I mentioned earlier, and has dire need for post-secondary educational services. The site is situated within communities that are farthest from our existing campuses and adjacent to new residential developments. So we see both the need from the existing population, and we see the growth component as well. This educational facility will necessarily meet the needs of the community in this sector of the city. So our request is for a $4 million planning grant to begin the process of addressing the needs of a very important sector of our community. Open for questions.
Thank you, Doctor. Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Johnson, president of the University of Nevada, Reno. And we're here to present a request for a planning grant for our life sciences building on the campus. The entire university has shifted its focus away from building student activity buildings like our Student Achievement Center and our Fitness Center and our dormitories to focus on building out and renovating research laboratories on the campus in our quest to be a highly rated research university that brings along wonderful student experience, graduate student experience, and new ideas for the development of businesses in this economy. We have had engaged an architect and a consultant firm that has worked with us, and we've identified that our chemistry, physics, and neuroscience laboratories can be renovated in existing buildings, and we are proceeding to self-fund those renovations. However, when we came to the life sciences, we found that we have 48 faculty in the Max Fleischmann Agriculture Building, which is composed of our agriculture faculty and our biology faculty. And the building not only is riddled with deferred maintenance since it was built in 1957, and it's under capacity, but importantly, from the standpoint of the consultants that looked at the building, this building cannot be renovated for modern research laboratories. The space between the floors and the ceilings is not sufficient to support ventilation for modern science. We can go to the second slide. So as I said, our goal is to be a highly rated research university. There are only 10 states that don't have such a university, and both UNLV and UNR are striving for this with the encouragement of the governor and the encouragement of the Board of Regents. So what we have proposed here is that we build a life sciences building. We've already got a scoping study underway, which will be done in the spring of 2019, just to understand how big and the nature of the facilities that we need, so that by the summer of 2019, we will be able to describe specifically what we need in such a building, and then we will hire architects in order to plan the building. We anticipate that the building cost would be around $100 million. The size would be around 90,000 square feet. And we would seek not only for the planning grant, but also for the construction, that we split the cost 50-50 between the state and the university self-funding. We already have the land in the new gateway on the south edge of campus, and the south edge of campus also is where we have our greenhouse facilities, which will be very complementary. So that's our request. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Butler, Nevada State College. I guess we're bookending this thing today. So you'll see from the slides that they're very bland because there really isn't anything glamorous about this project. But the fact of the matter is that we have a beautiful campus, about 512 acres, and we can only build on about 15% of that right now. And so we've master planned this entire campus, and every time we look to build a new building, we're really skipping over our master planning, and we're saying, where can we efficiently and effectively put this building? This also creates a cost consideration because we're building so close to the pressure zone that's currently there. We're having to pump for our fire suppressions, so we're adding costs of pumps. And also, as we all know, gravity is a lot more reliable than a diesel-powered engine. So, just to have that life safety aspect and that comfort level of being able to utilize a gravity-fed water pressure as opposed to man-made would be helpful. We've been asking, kind of bringing this up every year, and we've been asking for the whole thing to be funded. And we've always estimated it's going to be about $8 to $10 million. But the fact of the matter is, the more we think about it, we really don't know. And that's why we've decided to take a step back and let's study this thing. And so we've come back to ask for planning money so we can figure out what the solution sets really are. And then we can, once we define the solution set, then we can come back and figure out how to fund it. So that in a nutshell is what we're asking for right now. We're looking at probably a tank, a feed system, and the initial trunk of the distribution system to bring water not just to where the current pressure zone is, but to all of our campus.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
One last time, good afternoon again, Chair, members of the board. Again, for the record, Chester Burton, Chief Financial Officer for the Nevada System of Higher Ed. So as we wrap up our presentation this afternoon, we appreciate the time to hear the number of needs we have in higher ed in the state of Nevada, but I'm here to talk a little bit about the unglamorous aspect of some of our needs, and that is deferred maintenance. I'm afraid I might be sounding a little bit like a broken record because some of the themes you're going to hear today you've heard in previous sessions, and in fact, you may recall I was sitting with my fellow presidents 2 years ago as president of WNC and very well aware of what deferred maintenance means for all our campuses. And so now I'm here advocating system-wide. NC has a system-wide deferred maintenance need, and it's somewhat of a staggering number, but when you put it in context, I know looking at the other state agencies, it is all relative, about $1.5 billion. These projects include immediate needs such as HVAC systems that are failing or imminent danger of failing, to what is in the Navy we called PMs, or preventive maintenance, of course, with the theory if you spend $1 today in preventive maintenance, you probably avoid $10 down the road in a failure. We have 4 categories that we categorize our deferred maintenance. One is category 1, the critical need items that are immediate need to address. And as you heard both from the Vice Chair and the Chancellor today, we've done a lot to address some of those needs with self-funding through some of our investment pool money, recognizing that it was frankly impacting some of our facilities' ability to deliver our services. Number 2 is the potentially critical need is 1 to 2 years out. 3 is necessary, but it could probably be deferred 3 to 5 years, and the lowest priority is that recommended kind of PM type maintenance. Well, there's some overlap between these. Trust me, our facilities people really know what the needs are in their campuses. And I know that when I was at Western, when I talked to our facilities folks any given day, they could tell me what was being held together, as we used to say in Wisconsin, with duct tape and baling twine, and what could maybe go another 4 or 5 years. So looking at the categories, about 5 to 7% are in that critical category 1, which we've been whittling down very quickly. We estimate about 15% in category 2, or about 200 million, and those include what you see about the 2% projects. The Board of Regents has dictated that we invest 2% of the replacement value of our facilities that are over 5 years old for deferred maintenance. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these projects because, frankly, while we've gone through this exercise, there's been no funding through at least the last decade for any of these. So this year, the board, even though you'll see in your package these projects, they're not ranked in any particular order, but they're out there, and they are, I would liken some of them to ticking time bombs in terms of our facilities. The remainder, the vast majority, are categories 3 and 4, and frankly, at this point in time, given the more critical needs, those are things that we're not even really planning on. Before I conclude, I'd like to take also some time to talk about the HECS funding, which of course is the slot tax revenue that's historically been allocated to higher ed for deferred maintenance in our state. NC has $15 million per biennium dedicated for deferred maintenance. These higher education capital construction, or special higher education capital construction, so-called HECS check, flow in part for the annual $250 per year tax on slot machines in our state. With one exception, during the Great Recession back, I believe, in 2010, this funding has been fairly stable. The fact that the funding is stable is one of the greatest issues we're facing. because, well, we've continued to get this $7.5 million per year over the last over a decade or so. As we've all seen, the cost of construction and equipment continues to go up and up. I was somewhat astounded working with the State Public Works Division in looking at our 3 planning projects, because when we originally did those back in 2017, and we're just kind of back in the envelope estimating the costs, and then when we we're further into the planning cycle, in some cases we're seeing 50% or more construction inflation, and that's not just tied to only construction capital, you know, major projects. It's also tied to our deferred maintenance. So the longer some of these things roll out, the greater the cost is going to be. So that HEC check funding is allocated across all our campuses by square footage, which we've also increased over the last 20 years as enrollment has grown, as you've heard today, at all our campuses. It's really a proverbial drop in the bucket, but still these funds are critical. I know that when I was at Western, well, we did planning for using the HEC check fund over the 4-year window we had to use it. I always kept a little bit in my hip pocket because I knew that that boiler was going to fail, or we're going to have a junction box blow or something happen. And it wasn't, at the end of the day, if I hadn't had that money, sometimes in a small institution, it's all you have to deal with those problems. So frankly, it is critical. Now, one of the problems we have been facing is the slot tax has not been sufficient to cover that entire amount of funding over the last couple sessions. And we've been fortunate enough that it's been, in the last session, it was actually the backfilled with general fund. So we continue to get the full $15 million. And we understand that there'll probably be a shortfall again in the next session in the slot tax revenue. And we really feel it's critical that at a minimum that general fund funds, if needed, are available to backfill that amount. So with that, not only on deferred maintenance, but if the board would have any other questions for me or members of our campus, we appreciate very much your time this afternoon, and we can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. I do have one, probably more of a statement than a question. In your slide, in asterisks, it states in the last several legislative sessions, these projects have not been recommended for funding by the State Public Division or the board. And I just, for the record, I want to state that at least for the time that I've been on this board, we would love the opportunity to have that conversation. However, as you all know, we're limited by the amount of funds that are provided to us. It's not a matter of want, it's a matter of able. So I just want to make that known for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're well aware of that. That was not meant at all to be a criticism. It was just a statement of fact is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Yeah, Mr. Burton, a couple of questions. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So the HEC check funding, the $15 million per 2-year cycle, if you put that with your CIP request of the 57, that's like $72 million. So am I understanding correctly to say that in the higher education group, we're looking at about a $36 million a year deferred maintenance bill to keep up with our current facilities?
That would be a correct way to describe it when you look at those critical class 1 and 2 critical maintenance items as we define them. That would, you know, the board is defined at 2%, and the 2% actually slots fairly closely into those high priority need items. So that would be approximately a good representation of those to address those category 1 and category 2 needs. Yes, sir.
And a follow-up question on that, but the $36 million a year would not bring down the current, that would just maintain? Am I correct in assuming that $36 million in deferred maintenance for higher education per year would just keep it a status quo, or would we be catching up on the overall goal of limiting our deferred maintenance?
Well, as you well know, the 2% is every biennium, so that amount rolls forward as well as the HEC check. So as you said, because it would not address those category 3 and 4, which are the greater needs, that would be in a sense treading water for us and not really address some of the backlog or the lower priority needs that are more preventive maintenance type needs.
All right. And Mr. Chairman, it's okay, I've got one more question, but it's for the first three that presented to us. If I could have them come back up again.
Mr. Burton, we're going to have a question for you next. So.
Again, Sean Stewart for the record. Just a quick question. In your closing remarks, Mr. Vice, I believe it's Vice?
Yes, sir.
You made the comment that you strongly encouraged the legislature to look at sources of funding for deferred maintenance. Is that a correct recollection of what you said?
Jason Geddes for the record, and yes, that is correct.
Obviously, that's a major concern of this group. Many of us are in the construction industry. We realize the importance of deferred maintenance and what happens when we can't perform that deferred maintenance. Can you elaborate maybe for us today on ideas you might have on how to fund deferred maintenance going forward? Because we're all ears.
And really, from our side of it, right about 2011, we started making deferred maintenance a higher priority, and that's where we created the 2% policy at the board and trying to get the deferred maintenance addressed versus new buildings when the economy was going down. We were trying to prioritize keeping what we had in good working condition and making sure the spaces were able to be used for students and research. So we kind of turned that priority around, but in the previous legislatures, we didn't get much interest in addressing those first as so much as new buildings and designing new buildings. So we hadn't had much success there with the current pool of funds. So it would be for the legislature to recommend another pool of funds. As has been discussed from the previous presenters, we've looked at our capital improvement funds, our general improvement funds, donations from the charitable community, foundations, and some of our deferred maintenance has gone away by tearing down buildings and just getting them off the list, like the old Getchell Library really addressed some deferred maintenance backlog because we just got rid of it. So we've addressed where we can on the revenue side with student fees, with allocation of the funds we get. But if there's other avenues to get the allocation funds out there, that's what we'd be looking for. And I'm not entirely sure where that would come from.
Member Tiberti.
Sir, Mr. Burton, did you start off your presentation by referring to a couple of years ago when a fellow stood up in the back of the room and said all of the deferred all the deferred maintenance would be something like $1.2 billion? Did you just say that? And did I hear you say something about $1.5 billion?
As I started my presentations, or for the record, Chester Burton, Chief Financial Officer, if you look at all our needs across all our institutions and what's been estimated, the total need for deferred maintenance in those 4 categories, we estimate is about $1.5 billion. That's correct.
Paraphrase Everett Dirksen in Illinois, we're talking about serious money pretty soon. We're going to get $300 million increase for $1.2 billion, but as Sean Stewart said, we're all in the business and been around it, and I'm really, really worried that we build these buildings. My house is 31 years old, and I can't get a pump. I can't get this. The phone system can't be repaired, and it really becomes tearing it down. I know it's a little bit older than that, but still, it's a serious problem, and I know we all know that, but these are serious numbers, and these buildings are all going to dissipate pretty quickly if we don't do something, and I'm all for this, but I don't know how we get those big numbers, but you got a lot of big buildings, and they're getting to be a few years old, and it's a serious problem.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments of the board? Gentlemen, I appreciate your time. Ladies, thank you as well. I just reiterate what my colleagues have said. Recognize the severity of this problem. Number 10 Administrators report on agencies' activities. Mr. Patrick.
Not take that out of order since it's agendized for tomorrow. We would be prepared to do that, and possibly we could, looking to Susan on this, talk about the eventual recommendation and what format we might bring the recommendation for the entire CIP. Talk about how that was done last year from the administrator to the board and from the board to the governor. We could address that if that pleases
I have
the chairman.
to apologize, Mr. Patrick. I was in the wrong agenda item. So agenda item number 6. So excuse me for that. Public comment. Is there any public comment? I jumped ahead there. Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, which is the official recess of this meeting at about 5 after 3. Thank you. Okay, moving back to agenda item number 7, motion to recess.
So move.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Thank you.